Hi, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Brendan, and this is Galactic Grind.
This week on Galactic Grind, we're going to be talking about games that we'd like to see, maybe a few games that we've recently heard about.
This is definitely going to be a podcast about nerds' wet dreams about video games.
One I'd like to start off with is making an Avengers game. Square Enix is a great company. I'm hoping that they really build a great world and it's really sandboxy because those are some great games. Right off the bat, I'd like to talk about possibly a Daredevil game because I think that could bring in a lot of really cool elements, especially blind sight.
The first game where you get to play a blind character.
Yeah, I mean, it would be kind of fascinating because not only would it be a game based on visuals, it would also be a game based on audio. And with that, it would be a fascinating VR game because if you could see through the eyes of Matt Murdock, that'd be insane. But even if they don't do something like that, just a game that's Daredevil based in Hell's Kitchen, kind of like Arkham City, would be fascinating. I mean, there are tons of villains you could fight. Kingpin would be one of them. That would be awesome. Bullseye. There's so many villains that he has that you could throw in there. Another game that would be amazing, in my opinion, would be a Flash video game. And I think it would be kind of a hard concept because of how fast the character would be moving, especially in a sandbox related. But if they do something like action instead of a sandbox, it could have more relativity. But a sandbox game would open the aspect of something like a Dark Souls Flash game where you really have to hit your patterns perfectly so that Flash could actually make those moves. Otherwise, it's just going to make the character a little OP.
Well, I was telling Kyle in Witcher 3, you could play as one of the characters named Ciri, and in that you could do like this dash attack, and it was actually like one of your main moves that you did in the game as Ciri. I mean, I don't think it'd be too hard to actually implement fast fighting combos in a game like that. I mean, it just might be harder to keep it fluid all the time.
That's kind of true. But another thing is certain moves that Flash does, like the tornado, that has to be really well thought out, especially if you're going to plan it, because you're going to have to keep spinning the joystick so that basically he is running in circles. Or otherwise, if you fuck up once, you just shoot off into, let's say, a building and you just start running up a building. What's that going to do for you? And there are just ample ways that you could pattern out his movesets that could make it quite amazing. And he's a very diverse character. Even if we don't get a Flash game, it would be pretty awesome to get something in the DC universe. Another game that I think would be amazing, most people don't even know the character that well, would be a Starman game because Jack Knight is a badass martial artist and he has the ability to fly. I mean, fuck, that's a badass fucking game. You make that a sandbox game, I'd play it for fucking years.
Yeah, I don't know who Starman is.
Well, Starman is the guardian of Opal City, and he's a nostalgic freak who loves to collect weird little trinkets from bowling shirts to old grandfather clocks to all kinds of weird shit. But he's a well-trained martial artist. His father is a scientist. There's just so much depth to the character. If you don't know much about him, go pick up a couple issues. The Jack Knight version picked up back in the 90s. A lot of people who know anything relative to the Star family probably know Stargirl off of Legends of Tomorrow. I haven't actually had the opportunity to check out this season. Bet it's pretty amazing because, to be honest, I haven't been too disappointed with the DC TV universe other than a couple faults that they've done with the Arrowverse where they've started making Batman villains Arrow villains.
Yeah, just honestly, like at this point, fuck Arrow. Arrow kind of sucks.
Arrow would be another great game. They could do so much with the Arrowverse, including in video games. Essentially, it'd be almost exactly like Arkham City, but you'd have different villains. One of the things that bothered me about the Arrowverse is they killed some of the villains quite quickly that were actually big villains for him, like Count Vertigo. But you could actually sit there in the game, end up having an entire run against Count Vertigo, or you could have a big run against Malcolm Merlin, or you could have a big run against all these in-detailed villains that Arrow has. With that said, I kind of want to move on to another game. Another game that I've been contemplating over these last couple days would be a samurai-based RPG where monsters and dragons were involved, almost like a Dark Souls game, but has more story.
Well, I think that there really hasn't been a lot of samurai games. I mean, there was like a couple back on like the PlayStation 2, but other than that, they really haven't touched on anything samurai or ninja based, really. And those, in my opinion, and I know a lot of people share the same opinion, but it's a pretty fascinating concept for a video game.
There's so many different styles of things that you could do with them. But one of the ideas I was having, particularly with this samurai-based game, is maybe the story could be related about how the samurai has to go leave the Shogun temple because the Shogun's daughter was kidnapped by a bunch of dragons. So now he has to go through the mystical forest and basically fight these creatures to retrieve the princess. And I know it's kind of a cliche thing for video games, but sometimes cliche is actually quite well done. It has a lot of depth. It gives you a lot of story. And the thing is, I'm just throwing out ideas because where we're going with video games right now is just kind of sad when we have 1 or 2 games that are coming out a year and the rest of them are kind of crap.
And it's becoming more based around money instead of it being actual content that we actually want to see.
Yeah, and we're going to bring that up in another Galactic Grind where we actually kind of attack the gaming industry as a whole. But let's continue on to some other games that would be quite interesting to have. One of which I think that we haven't touched on at all, Society, is good horror games. Something that makes you really shit your pants. You're playing it in the dark and you just feel terrified the minute that that creature runs by you and you're like, oh shit. Like PT was going to be that.
Alien Isolation's really the only game I've ever played that was like that.
For me, it was Fear. Alien Isolation, I agree with him, is one of those games, but only really if you're wearing headphones, because the minute that you start wearing headphones, you hear the fucking xenomorph in your ear, and the minute that you hear that xenomorph in your ear, you're like, oh shit, where's it coming from?
Yeah, I felt like I was gonna shit my pants half the time when I heard that. I hear like and I'd be like, oh, fuck.
Brendan was actually talking about recently, which I don't understand how he could put himself through this harm, basically playing Alien Isolation on a VR system. To be honest, I'd shit my pants and probably start crying.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth a couple nightmares.
But on to the next one is Shadowrun. Back on Super Nintendo, they had a Shadowrun RPG, and I never actually had the opportunity to play it, but I watched a lot of playthroughs of it. It looked interesting, but obviously it was low resolution, low quality. But from there, like, they have so much detail that they could do to this universe, and they could actually bring some depth. One of the things that I'd like to see is the fact that Shadowrun is a cyberpunk fantasy realm. I think it has so much to offer to the gaming industry. Since Xbox 360, we haven't seen anything from the Shadowrun title. It would be pretty awesome to see something. This is going to be the last game that I'm talking about because I'm never going to see it, even though I wanted to see this since the first edition of this series. I'm kind of sad to say that Lion's Head has been dismantled. If you read all those books about the Lost Kingdom, the Fable Lost Chapters, the Lost Kingdom was bound to be a fantastic game if they ever got to it. But they kept beating around the bush after they got bought by Microsoft. It kind of died off overall. I was displeased with the second title. I was displeased with the third title. They didn't have enough depth. They didn't even have boss battles anymore. Like, you had the arena, and the Crucible was nowhere near as good as the arena. When you fought the Scorpion Queen at the end of the arena, that was something that was merit worthy. But no, when you fought all the things in the Crucible, to be honest, I was bored.
That wraps up Galactic Grind Episode 1.
The next time we'll be back, we'll be talking about what games we'd like to see, mostly pertaining to the Star Wars universe. That's because there are so many games that Disney can create with EA. Sadly, is the title holder of the Star Wars universe right now. But nonetheless, there's so much you can develop, and I'm kind of hoping that we see something good.
Please rate, comment, and subscribe.
So we'll catch you next time. Enjoy your night.